All right, so we are finally live. What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Raptors Report. It's time to talk about the Toronto Raptors. I haven't done a live stream in quite some time, so welcome to my live stream. For today's video, I'm going to do a live stream. I'm going to take some questions as well, but I'm going to be taking a look at three X Factor players, three players that could be X Factors for the Toronto Raptors this season as well. So I'm obviously going to dive into it in a few minutes. We'll just let a few of you guys gather in here if you have any thoughts how you feel about the Raptors offseason. It's been an interesting offseason to say the least. I mean, we lost Fred. We quickly replaced him with Dennis Schröder, which was a great replacement. I really like that as well. And I'm going to talk about Dennis in today's video as well. It's going to be a good video. It's going to be a fun video. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes. We got about 5 people in here. So what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are enjoying your Monday evening here. Pacific time, 5:17 on the Eastern Coast. It's probably about 8:15 there. But thank you for joining me. We're going to give it a minute or so, and then we're going to jump into today's video discussing three X factors for the Toronto Raptors. And it's going to be an interesting season to say the least for the Raptors. Like this is a very strange season for the Raptors, right? Because everyone was hoping we'd pick a direction. Then we heard those Pascal Siakam rumors. We thought we would, change directions and go into kind of a soft rebuild, build around Scotty, OG, and Gary Trent. Unfortunately, and I don't know if I want to call it unfortunately, I really like Pascal Siakam. Fortunately, we haven't traded Pascal. I think he is very vital to the Raptors' offense going forward this season as well. I might touch upon that at the end of the video, but we got a decent amount of people in here, guys. Let's jump into today's video. So I'm going to be taking a look at three X factors, three players that could be X factors for the Raptors this season. And player number one we're going to start with is Dennis Schröder. Now I want to talk about Dennis because I really like this signing. I know people, are saying we lost a lot of three-point shooting with Fred gone, and that's understandable. With Dennis, he's not the same type of three-point shooter. He isn't even the same type of defender as well. But there are a lot of good things that Dennis does. Now, when you talk about, what the Raptors wanted from their point guard last season, and AKA Fred was, pass a little bit more, facilitate a little bit more. A lot of fans were hoping for something similar to what Kyle Lowry did in his previous seasons with the Raptors. Now we know Fred is not a pass first point guard, but Dennis is. This is why I'm very excited about the signing. I think he could be a major X factor for the Raptors. And I'm not just saying this because of where I think he may be starting coming off the bench, but I think regardless of where he may end up being, starting the game coming off the bench, he's going to have an impact regardless. And it's going to be a big impact for the Toronto Raptors. Let's talk about him potentially starting. I don't necessarily think he should start. I think I could probably see him starting, maybe move Gary to the bench as well. But then you kind of are left with not enough shooting. That makes it a little bit challenging for the Raptors, right? Because now you have Dennis, then you have, OG as being your only consistent three-point shooter. Then you got Pascal, Scotty, and Jakob, who aren't great three-point shooters. Yak cannot shoot the three. But in terms of his impact, let's talk about Dennis. I want to talk about the offense first because I've been watching him since his Atlanta days, and I strongly believe he's going to be one of the major key contributors to how the Raptors season goes. Because when we talk about defense, we always talk about centers, but when we talk about running the offense, which is the quarterback for most NBA teams, that is the point guard. Now, Dennis is a great floor general. He's great at getting his guys in the right spots. And I'm very excited to see him become a pass first point guard. He's actually very versatile. Like, I'm going to quickly go through his stats here throughout the seasons. Like when he was, example, let's look at his Oklahoma City Thunder days. We know Chris Paul was on that team as well. So his assist numbers weren't as good as, when he played with some of the other teams. Only 4 assists in the 2 seasons he played with Oklahoma City Thunder, excuse me. But his point scoring went way up. He was averaging 15 points, 18 points a game as well. So again, in that role, he wasn't necessarily expected in Oklahoma City. He wasn't necessarily expected to be the main point guard as Chris Paul was there already. So he was focusing more on the scoring. Now with the Raptors, he could do a little bit of both. Now, based off of his Atlanta Hawks days, again, his numbers, when you look at his assist columns throughout the year, his career average is only 4.7 assists. And, even 2 seasons ago, 5.9 assists on a Houston Rockets team, which he really didn't play in, isn't spectacular numbers. But he's someone, besides going off the numbers, who could be a pass first point guard or who could score a little bit more in terms of the offense. If he's coming off the bench, the most impressive thing about Dennis is I'm excited about how he's going to get Grady Dick a lot of looks, but also guys like Precious. I don't want to say Chris Boucher because Chris Boucher isn't necessarily a pick and roll type of big, right? Like he's not, and I don't even want to call him a big because he's more of like a forward, but he's too skinny to realistically be a power forward. But in terms of finding guys easy looks, like you see Dennis, when he's attacking the basket, he's got Christian Koloko right there. I think him and Christian could work really, really good in the pick and roll. He can get him some alley hoops as well. He's thrown some lobs, throw some lobs to Christian Koloko, get him some easy looks, he'll get him some easy baskets, which will be good. Now, I want to quickly touch upon Dennis's defense as well, before we move on to our next player here, because Dennis is a different type of defender than Fred was. I know Fred got a lot of hate on, his defense. He did slow down a little bit, but there's different types of point guards in terms of being defensive point guards. There's the Fred and Kyle Lowry's that are a little bit bigger. They're a little bit more physical. Dennis isn't that. So Dennis isn't going to be getting backed up by a shooting guard and going to hold his own in the post. That's not the type of defender he is. But what Dennis is really great at in terms of defense is that when you saw the Raptors play, for example, teams like the Atlanta Hawks, teams like the Philadelphia 76ers, those quicker guards, that are in Tyrese Maxey with Trae Young. Now, I'm not saying Dennis is going to shut them down necessarily, but he's that kind of point guard that can keep up with some of the quicker, shorter, faster point guards, and he's going to be great for our defense in that sense. Now, again, like I said, he's going to be a different type of defender, but I'm excited because we haven't had that kind of point guard in quite some time when you think about it. Even Kyle Lowry, he was great defender at times. He took a lot of charges, but one thing he was not was he wasn't always a very quick feed. He wasn't quick footed, so he wasn't necessarily keeping up with some of the fastest point guards in the NBA because he wasn't fast himself. So Dennis is going to be very interesting in terms of what I think he could do. It'll be fun to see. Aris Bandy says, I think Dennis was promised as a starting role. That slipped during an interview. Yeah, I saw that as well. Again, regardless of where wherever he decides, wherever Coach Darko decides to put Dennis, I think it's going to be interesting because I think bench would be amazing. First of all, you get to see Scotty. You want to see what you have in Scotty in terms of him being a point guard. You want to see him facilitate, as well. So it will be interesting to see. And again, we need to remind ourselves as fans that our expectations going into this season should be decent. Nothing too crazy because you don't want to put, insane expectations on the Raptors because the Raptors are a mystery box. You don't know what they're going to get this season. You're going to get a great team that might be, fifth seed, or you might get a team that's, seventh, eighth seed. So we don't necessarily know what the Raptors are going to be. But in terms of Darko, I think he will use him fairly well. That is a good point, RS. I think having Dennis off the bench would be very interesting, right? Because we know the Raptors already have so many ball dominant players, and OG wants a bigger role. We know Scotty is going to get a bigger role. Doesn't want a bigger role. He's going to get a bigger role. And then Pascal's going to do his thing as well. So do we really need another, again, not saying it would be a bad idea, but do we need Dennis in the starting lineup? It'll be interesting to see regardless. I think he could do wonders off the bench. That's just all I'm saying. That has been a weak point for the Raptors for quite some time in terms of the past, their bench. And he could be that veteran, six man off the bench coming off and getting some of the younger guys involved. So again, he'll get the ball moving. Darko's system is all about ball movement as well. So it'll be interesting to see. The second player who I think could be a major X factor for the Toronto Raptors is going to be one that could surprise a lot of people. This is going to be Jalen McDaniels. Now, when I saw this signing, someone actually sent this to me while I wasn't home, and I was shocked that the Raptors actually signed him for so cheap. Now, I'm not saying the Raptors should have paid him more or he's worth a lot more than what he got paid, but he's a one very, very under the radar signing. Like, I want to quickly pull up Jalen McDaniel stats as well, because people, I mean, I know a lot of people like him, but not a lot of people realize the impact that he will have on the Toronto Raptors. Like, he's 6'9", 25 years old. He's 205 pounds listed. But one thing I really like about Jalen is he's able to guard multiple positions, which is going to be great for the Raptors. When you think about it, what do they need? They need versatility, yes. But one of the weaker points has been that, they have forwards, they have a bunch of them, but not all of the forwards can defend small forwards or even shooting guards at different times. So I think it'll be fun to have Jalen McDaniels because, okay, guys like Chris Boucher, you look at, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, they aren't necessarily able to guard some of the shooting guards as well. So Jalen McDaniels will be interesting in the sense that you could use him in different areas. You can use him as a shooting guard if you need defense there. You can use him as a small forward, which I think the Raptors may just do. Again, it depends entirely on, if Gary is starting or coming off the bench. I think that will be big. That will be big. In terms of his defense, I do want to touch upon a few things. People don't realize, again, his steal numbers may not indicate it, as he's only got 0.7 steals last season, and with Philadelphia and, with the Charlotte Hornets, he was a little bit better. He's getting a bigger role. He's playing more. 1.2 steals isn't bad at all. And, he's averaging 10 points with the Charlotte Hornets, but his passing got much, much better last season with the Hornets. Again, in Philadelphia, he was kind of limited to a role and he wasn't getting a lot of minutes. He wasn't getting a lot of touches. So that kind of limited his options and, overall his contributions to that team as well. But in terms of Jalen McDaniels, I really hope he is somewhere in the top 8, of the players we use. I really like him. And I was having a conversation with my good friend Kenyon about this as well. And we were talking about this. We said, what is something that Jalen does what is something that Precious does that Jalen cannot do better? So that got me really thinking. We had this good conversation, and he was right. When you think about Jalen, what he's able to do. He can play great defense. He can shoot the 3-point ball. Apparently, his trainer said as soon as he signed with the Toronto Raptors, he started shooting 3-pointers, corner three. So again, his 3-point shot got a lot better as well. In terms of Jalen McDaniels, his 3-point shot, like taking a look here, again, with the 76ers, it was 40%, but he was only taking about 1.3 attempts per game. I know it's not very encouraging about, shooting about 32% on 3.6 attempts, but again, it's one of those things where it's like you could argue with the Hornets. I'm kind of contradicting myself when I say he didn't get a big role with the 76ers, but with the 76ers, you also had James Harden, you had Joel Embiid. That's where the attention was on offense when teams were guarding them. So Jalen McDaniels wasn't necessarily the focal point of that offense or even the third, fourth guy. Tyrese Maxey was there, Tobias Harris was there as well. So maybe he got a lot more open looks. With the Hornets, you got LaMelo Ball there, but let's be honest, like who's there? LaMelo Ball, and that's it. Not a lot of handful of offensive contributors on that team. So again, I think his 3-point shot will go, and think he's a very under the radar facilitator as well. So now we've got this Raptors team that is full of Jakob Poeltl, Pascal Siakam. You got Scotty Barnes, Dennis Schröder, and then you also got Jalen McDaniels, who's an excellent passer. So now all of a sudden, it's going to be very fun to see this Darko's new system. You got 5 different guys that could easily, very easily, should be averaging, 2, 3+ assists, at least at the very least, 3 assists per game. I don't think that's going to be the case for Jalen. I just don't think he'll get enough touches or enough, of a major role in terms of his usage as well on this team. But again, I'm excited. I think he can score in different ways, not just a 3-point shot. He can attack the basket. He's very athletic. He's a very good help side defender, and he can soar for one of those, those major blocks. As we've seen that clip of Fred going viral all over the internet as soon as the Raptors signed Jalen McDaniels, where he comes in and soars in, gets a massive block. So I'm very excited. I like Jalen McDaniels a lot. I think his potential has not been reached yet, and I think he'll only continue to grow. And then we got Scramble saying McDaniels is going to back up OG, small forward, shooting guard 3 and 8. Yeah, Scrambles, I absolutely agree. I think that's going to be one of the things with Jalen. We've really been lacking that 3 and D off the bench, and it could look. I'm not saying I really hope OG has a healthy season, but we've seen many times OG go down with an injury, and Jalen is a great, again, not comparing them to in terms of defense. He's a great replacement to come off the bench, right? In terms of a backup plan as well. So I really like Jalen. I'm personally very high on him. I don't know how the rest of you guys feel about him. I really like Jalen McDaniels. I think there's so much more. Gio, he says Gary in his contract year is not coming off the bench, or he's gone for nothing in the summer. We'll see. Again, we'll see. I'm actually going to talk to Gary, not talk to Gary. I'll talk about Gary in just a moment here. But I'll get to you guys' questions in just a moment. In terms of Gary, I think he's going to be my third X factor. Like I was looking across the list, and you could probably go with at least 2, 3 other guys. I know people may be tempted to say OG, maybe someone like a Precious if he has a bounce back season, Christian Koloko based off his defense. But I'm actually my third X factors for the Toronto Raptors, excuse me, is going to be Gary Trent Jr. Now, why do I say this? I think his ability to play make, again, I know I've probably criticized Gary on this channel more than any other Raptors YouTuber. Like his assists just have not been there. 1.6 assists last season. The previous season with the Raptors, 2 assists. Now, I do think Gary Trent Jr. is not a bad facilitator, because I remember this one specific play. And for any NBA player that has played as much as Gary has in the NBA and has the scoring ability that Gary does, and we know Gary loves to, I'm not saying he loves to play hero ball, but I know for a fact that Gary can make a lot of difficult shots. So for Gary to pass it to Christian Koloko in that one game, specific game, I forget against who it was, but Gary gave it to a rookie, Christian Koloko, for that three, and Christian Koloko made that. So that just shows you that Gary has the ability of being a playmaker, a willing playmaker, and you kind of have to instill that in him. Again, there was too many chefs and not enough, not enough knives to cut. I'm not getting that reference correctly. I know a lot of people had said, too many cooks, not a big enough kitchen. I think it was something like that that people were saying. But again, too many ball dominant players last season with the Raptors in their starting lineup, and not enough ball to go around, right? So I think Gary with Fred gone is going to have a bigger role. And also, when you take a look at Gary, I was listening to a few podcasts. I believe his Raptors Republic. When you listen, or when you look at Gary Trent, the role that he had last season with the Toronto Raptors wasn't necessarily to be a playmaker. Pascal was there for that reason. Fred had the ball in his hands a lot, and then Jakob is a great passer as well. So that wasn't necessarily Gary's role. The last 2 seasons with the Raptors was just to become, a 3-point shooter and also make a lot of difficult shots as well. But in terms of Gary, why I think I really like him and why I think he could be the X factor with the Raptors is Darko doing some wonders with him. He could force him to do things he's not comfortable doing, which is exactly what he got Desmond Bain to do. And I'm not comparing the two players, but I personally think that, Darko could work wonders with Gary Trent and also just, get him to do things again, like I said, get him to do things he's not comfortable doing. And that is going to be a role change in which, you see Gary driving more and maybe facilitating a lot more. Again, that's a little bit more challenging to do because the Raptors don't have a lot of three-point shooters in their starting lineup. On the bench, yes, you got Grady Dick as well, who I really like. But again, he's a rookie, guys. Like he's gonna have times during the season where he's going to struggle, and unfortunately, fans are gonna let him hear it. But I like Grady Dick, but I'm hoping for big things for Gary. Again, he's in a contract season. He's working with Darko. He's a young player. He's gonna be energetic. After the few seasons with Nick Nurse, where it seemed like it wasn't, let's be honest, it's not just Geary. A lot of players weren't happy with their roles, weren't getting the role that they necessarily wanted. So I'm excited for Gary. I think he could do wonders with the Raptors this season. I think he's going to have a bounce back season. And, depending on how he's used, I think he could easily, at the very least, like taking a look at his stats here, he's never averaged. I'm going to go on a bold take here, guys. He's never averaged more than 2 assists in his entire career during a season. I got Gary Trent Jr. averaging 2.9 or 3 assists next season. Now I know that's not a huge jump, but that's a progress. That's a huge progress for someone like Gary Trent Jr., who's been forcing up a lot of shots. So these are my three X factors, guys. So for those who may have missed it, I'm going to quickly give you a recap. My X factors for the Raptors: Dennis Schröder. I think he's going to be a great facilitator, a pass first point guard for the Raptors. And if he's coming off the bench, the one thing he's going to do is really help some of these other guys get easy baskets, like Christian Koloko, Precious Achiuwa, and Grady Dick as well. He's going to get him some nice open looks, but also that he's going to be a leader for the guys off the bench. He could be our sixth man. And then I got on my second X factor for the Toronto Raptors, I got Jalen McDaniels. His defense is going to be amazing. He can guard power forwards, small forwards, shooting guards, which is something the Raptors haven't had in quite some time. Backup 3 and D, and that's going to be excellent. He's shooting a lot of corner threes as soon as he signed with the Raptors, and he's also an underrated playmaker as well. And I don't believe he's reached his ceiling yet. So I'm expecting big things from those two, as well as Gary Trent Jr. So again, I expect Darko to work with Gary. I think he's going to do wonders with him, get him to maybe facilitate a lot more, change his roll up. And Gary is in a contract season as well. So again, I expect three big things for those. You can go off and maybe mention a few other guys as well. But I'm very curious to hear what you guys think, and I'll take some of the comments here. So Gio is saying Gary in a contract year is not coming off the bench, or he is gone for nothing in the summer. Gio, you could be very well right. I do think it depends. Like the mindset of players shouldn't be as many YouTubers have mentioned it, and I think Jack Armstrong mentioned this as well during the game. It shouldn't be who's starting, but who's finishing the game, right? So I think Gary depends on how he is with Darko, his relationship, with his how happy he is with his role this season with the Raptors, how they use him as well. I think he would obviously want to start. I'm not saying he wouldn't, but Gary could be someone that could be, again, if he's playing, 30 minutes a game off the bench, 33 minutes a game off the bench, and he's finishing games, I don't know if he would be unhappy with that. But again, it depends on Gary's mindset. That's up to him entirely. But we'll see what happens. RS Mandy writes, I think McDaniels would be a good signing. Wonder if he has a player option in his second season. RS, from what I remember, I don't think Jalen McDaniels has a player option for a second season, which is great because the Raptors always do this, which irks me so much because they always give a player option on the second year of a lot of these free agency signs. So I think I might be right. I don't think they've given a player option. Scrumble says as long as everyone shoots close to 35% from the three, who isn't proven above 35% shooter, we won't have any problems. It's only the players struggling to achieve from the three or who don't this year that are an issue. Yeah, like the thing with Jakob, we know he's not going to shoot some threes. I really wish Jakob could get some sort of mid-range shot going. It would work wonders, in pick and rolls with Pascal and Scotty. It would force defenders to really defend differently if Jakob just establishes some sort of, even within the free throw line, just a foot inside the free throw line, establish some sort of jump shot from there. It would work wonders. Sean says Gary's role was to get the bucket, not to become the playmaker. He's played his role, which will probably change if Darko forces him to do so. Sean, I absolutely agree. That's what I was saying too. I don't think his role on the Raptors was to necessarily play make. It was to make difficult shots. It was to space the floors for guys like Pascal and Scotty and other guys when they were driving as well. Um, let's see here. Rank Scrub says, in my humble opinion, dividing the roster into two units where Pascal is the first unit, Scotty is the second unit, allows the Raptors to not have a 10 eight not allows the Raptors to not have 8-10 minute shifts like the starters had last year. Faster paced basketball. Yeah, rank scrubs. That was something actually. That was an idea I actually proposed to a lot of fans. Obviously, they got triggered because what I was proposing was Scotty in his rookie season. I actually wished he had come off the bench, not because I dislike Scotty, not because he's not a capable starter, because it would have given Scotty a lot more touches as well, and also to allow him to pretty much just run his own unit, kind of like how they do in hockey, right? Again, not using the entire comparisons because obviously in hockey they got four lineups, but having a first unit, second unit, Scotty would have been given a longer leash, he'd be able to do some of the things he necessarily may not be have been able to do with the starters there. If Darko turned Desmond Bain into a star, Gary Trent Jr. has great odds, says Jonas. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think with Desmond Bain, I know people are saying, Raptors pass on him. The reason they passed on him was because everyone kind of knew his potential, but Darko took it to a next level. Like when Desmond was drafted, the major thing with him was that, he's going to be a great 3-point shooter. He could be a good defender, and that's it. He's not going to be much more. And, he obviously proved a lot of people wrong, and a lot of the credit does go to Darko as well. Scramble says that's why we're starting the returning five highest paid players. We have Schroeder and Boucher off the bench contracts as sixth, seventh men. Yeah, Scrambles. I've actually I would have liked the Raptors to get maybe one more 3-point shooter, but just given they want to see what they have in Precious. They want to. I know people aren't high on Malachi Flynn. They want to see what they have in those two guys. So I think that's why they want to. They don't want to add more point guards to this. Also, not add more shooting guards because in case Dennis is starting or Gary's coming off the bench, or if they're using Grady Dick as a shooting guard, that's probably why. You don't want too many players that need playing time or too many projects on this team as well. So again, I think that's the reason. That's the reason why I don't think they've traded Chris Boucher. I think they might. Yaku excluded from that. My bad. I think the starting lineup of opening night is going to be Scotty, Gary, Ogwagwa, yeah, OG Ananobi, Pascal, and Jakob. Do you agree? I think so. I think so. RF Bandy, the thing is, they're not gonna, Scotty said last year at the starting of the season, he said, I'm a point guard. He said something like that in front of the press conference. So, with Fred gone, this is his opportunity to become a point guard. I don't think the Raptors will say, you're not a point guard, or, not allow him that opportunity to. I think there will be times where, there's different guys running the point guard duties. Obviously, Dennis, Scotty, we'll see Pascal at times as well. In terms of injuries, what happens in terms of playing time as well. We'll get a lot of players playing different roles. Especially if OG wants a bigger role. Maybe Pascal, is more of a facilitator, and to allow OG to take a bigger role offensively. Um, Schroeder, based on interview, expects a much bigger role than he deserves. Has the attitude I'm the captain now. I hope I'm wrong and doesn't cause friction in the locker room. Sean, I really hope not, because everything you're saying is pretty much what a lot of fans described Fred to be. But again, I expect Darko, to know what Dennis's qualities are, what he's good at doing, what he's not good at doing. So I think the reason Dennis actually signed with the Raptors was that he said Coach Darko was one of the reasons, but also because he thought he could be a starting point guard on the Raptors as well. So it's going to be fun. Again, it's going to be exciting. We'll have to see how Scotty does in the point guard as the point guard. It'll be interesting. He'll have his good moments and his bad, as every young player does. But I'm sure they'll play Dennis a lot at the point guard position as well. I agree with Sean. I never liked Dennis, and in all interviews, he's talking a lot about about being the leader on the team. I also didn't like the whole Maxi Cleaver thing. Yeah, I didn't really like that either. I don't know why that even happened, to be honest. RS Bandy. It was quite interesting. It was a little bit strange that Dennis did do that, but again, I don't necessarily mind it. I think, guys, we've come off a season. Let's be honest, as Raptors fans, we probably had the worst season in quite some time. Outside of the Tampa season, that season was justified because we had every excuse in the books. We were playing away from home. We had injuries, players had COVID, and we decided to tank the last 20 games of the season. We probably could have made the playoffs. We decided to tank. So I think that was the reason, the Tampa season, at least you could have excuses. Last year, there was no excuses. The guys were fairly healthy. Everyone was playing not as good as they should have outside of maybe Pascal Siakam, So OG picked it up late in the season. I don't necessarily think, Sean, Sean and RS, I want to get to your guys' thing about Dennis. I don't necessarily think it's the player, being egoistic when he talks about leadership and whatnot. I think it's just we're coming off such a bad season where we've all been really negative about the Raptors, and we're digging a little bit too much into what players say. Everything, like micromanaging. Like for example, if I had said certain things, you would say you would take that little thing and expand it. So I don't necessarily think Dennis is wrong for saying that. It's perfectly fine given the fact that the Raptors are a very young team, and Dennis is probably one of the older guys outside of Thaddeus, Otto, and Gary Temple, who we just signed. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I do agree with him, though. I really feel like Dennis could be the leader in the locker room because he's done that even with LeBron James on the Lakers, right? Like you see when you watch the playoffs, like you see him talking to the guys and really rallying the guys up. So I don't necessarily think Dennis is like that. I certainly hope not because that's the last thing the Raptors need. So if Siakam shoots 35%, is Scotty close to that from the three? Shooting will be fine. Gary Noji will be close to 40% from the three. Yeah, that's here's the thing, Scramble. So I don't know if you guys recall, OG wasn't shooting as many threes. I'm gonna pull up the stats here. OG was definitely not shooting as many threes last season, and there was a reason for that. It was because he wanted to focus more on being a bigger player than just a 3 and D. Like his 3 point attempts last season went down a one whole attempt. The previous season, he shot 6.6 3 point attempts per game. 2022, 2023, he shot about 5.5 3 point attempts per game. Then there was a reason why. He wanted to drive more. He wanted to prove to people he has a bigger game. And, a lot of players were just playing ISO. So, he understandably, OG was upset. He's probably thinking, hey, why am I being forced into a 3 and D role when I know I'm capable of a lot more? So I don't think OG will shoot as much. I think he'll drive a lot more. He'll play more ISO basketball, maybe a lot more jump shots we'll see from him, but we'll see. If that is the case, though, if Siakam could shoot close to, 35%, Scotty could shoot around 33, 34%, that'd be amazing. Um, Schröder, McDaniels, Boucher, Chris Precious. 30% is fine from the three off the bench. Grady, hopefully higher, pushing 40% like Gary or OG. Scrambles actually. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on Grady. He is a rookie, though. We do need to keep that in mind. I don't know if Grady will shoot 40%. That's insanely high, even for one of the best recent rookies, who was a great 3 point shooter. And we're talking about Desmond Bain here. Like in his rookie season, he shot he shot. Oh wow, that is insane. So Desmond Bain, no wonder he's having the season he's having. So I thought he shot close to like 37, 38%. Desmond Bain in his rookie season with Memphis shot 43% from the 3 point line on 4 attempts per game. That is absolutely insane. As a rookie, he was doing that. Wow. So maybe, hey, Scrambles, maybe you're right. Maybe Grady does hit close to 40. I think it would be nice if he could hit even 37%. He's going to have some struggling moments at times, but let's see. Nameless is saying, love the live streams. Can we get some more this season? Nameless, I would absolutely love to, man. I would absolutely love to. Life's about to get a little bit hectic in a month or so. I may not even be making a lot more videos coming up, but life's been busy with personal stuff and work and whatnot. But I would love to have live streams during the season. It's just so many YouTubers are doing it, and they're all great YouTubers. So it's like it's like I'd rather have videos where people can comment rather than doing live streams. I wouldn't be against it, but yeah, let's see how life goes. If I have time, I'll definitely try. Majority of the team just needs to shoot close to 35%. The individual defense from the whole team will make opponents shooting more difficult than it will to us. Scrambles, that's a very good point. I want to quickly touch upon the Raptors defense as well, because when we talk about defense, we talk about last year's defense wasn't that great. I think Jakob Poeltl definitely made a huge difference in the Raptors' defense. Yes. Also, it was just how Nick Nurse was using Jakob. Like when you look at him, he had him on the 3 point line, right? Whereas Darko seems like he wants him more in the paint, where he wants to be protecting the rim as well. So this is going to be very interesting, whereas Nick was a different philosophy. Nick was actually more focused on protecting the 3 point line rather than the basket, and that kind of, exposed the Raptors many times because all you would need to do is pump fake, then attack the basket as well. So again, it's very interesting to see how the Raptors will do. I think Dennis is a much better defender than Fred. That alone will make a huge difference for the Raptors. I also think, Scotty's going to be better defensively. OG's going to be OG. Pascal, hopefully with less minutes played, he can focus a little bit more on defense. Hopefully he's playing close to, 34 minutes a game and not 37. Even those fewer minutes makes a huge difference for even a well-conditioned athlete like Pascal Siakam. And then I also expect Christian Koloko to play a lot more. He's a great rim protector as well. Precious, I expect him to have a bounce back season. And I think Jalen McDaniels is going to be great, absolutely phenomenal for the Raptors to have, that 3 and D coming off the bench. It's going to be a huge, huge replacement, for what we've had in the previous season. So, Hubert RD says Schröder for prime minister. He's German. I don't know. He'd have to apply for his Canadian citizenship. Yeah, I agree. More live streams, better discussions. Absolutely, Aris Bandy. I don't disagree with that. What are your thoughts on Scotty's decrease in efficiency while maintaining the exact, essentially the same stat line? Jonas, I'm assuming you're talking about, this last season. It's look, the thing with the Raptors was, man, it was just so much inconsistency, and I know this comes across as hating Scotty. I've always said this: let the player, let the young man just grow into his own. After his rookie season, that's why I didn't make too many videos on Scotty. I was actually the first Raptors YouTuber to say the Raptors will draft Scotty, but I kind of eased off of there because it was almost like people were jumping on the bandwagon of Scotty Barnes, Scotty Barnes, Scotty Barnes, and I don't want to make videos just to for views or just I don't want to make views jumping off the hype or the bandwagon. I like Scotty from day one. I think he's great, but you have to allow him time to grow into his own. Like people are saying, he's the next Giannis. He's going to be a top five superstar in next 2 years. Just let the man breathe. Let the man breathe. Scotty's going to be good. You have to let him grow slowly. He's going to have his ups and downs, and which is perfectly fine because the Raptors are not contending, and that's how players grow. They don't grow through their success; they grow through their struggles. So it's okay. Scotty's going to have his struggles. I was expecting obviously a little bit more from Scotty last season, but it's okay. You know what? A lot of players had down seasons, so it is what it is. When Siakam was shooting 37%, he was all NBA. 35% is all I need for that respect again. Yeah, I think scrambles, he also depends on like Pascal Siakam. If he's going to be all NBA, it depends entirely on how the Raptors do as a team, like the success there, what you see him do. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm being a hater. I know how badly we needed a shooter. I thought that Grady was not the best pick, especially in Kobe Buffkin. Cam Whitmore, Summer League MVP were still there. RS Vandy, you know what? There's a reason why I didn't put up my live reaction to Grady Dick because people I know are gonna use that and come back at me in 6 months and say, you didn't like the initial pick. And also, I just felt like I didn't react very organically because my initial reaction was like, Grady Dick. Like, my initial reaction to when the Raptors selected Grady Dick was I genuinely thought they were not going to select him. So when they did select him, my mind was just blown. I was like, "Holy! The Raptors just made a very unusual pick. They selected a shooter, which the Raptors absolutely need." But I actually had Cam Whitmore, and what my thinking process was at that moment when the Raptors had Cam Whitmore available was this could be another OG and Anobi situation. Like I'm not comparing the two players, but when OG was injured, he slipped to the Raptors because teams were passing on him. I felt like maybe the Raptors feel like they could develop a 3 and D off the bench and they could have a scoring punch off the bench. I really like the Grady Dick signing, and I also really like Kobe Buffkin as well. So again, I was surprised. Again, I know you're not being a hater. I definitely didn't have those. I didn't have Grady Dick as my pick even when he was available. I definitely thought they're going to be Kobe or Cam Whitmore. I was leaning a little bit towards Cam Whitmore, but it is what it is. We need Grady Dick. The last thing when you think about it, guys, the last thing the Raptors need on this team is guys that want the ball in his hands, ball in their hands. It's we already have too many of those guys, and that's definitely not the type of player we want at the moment. I mean, Kobe would have been really nice given that the Raptors don't really, especially after losing Delano Banton, they don't necessarily have a point guard in their system, which is going to be up and coming. So that Kobe would have been nice, but it is what it is. Mango Gaming says we might trade Boucher in this offseason. You know what, Mango? I've been saying that this entire season, entire offseason. I feel like to shore up the guard depth, you can definitely trade Chris Boucher for some sort of point guard. But then again, you got Dennis. So if he's coming off the bench, like where are you gonna play? Are you gonna play two point guards off of the bench? And Scotty's gonna be playing heavy minutes at the point guard, perhaps probably Pascal Siakam at certain times as well. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with Chris Boucher. We do need to remember that Precious is going into next offseason being a free agent as well. Obviously, I think the Raptors should bring him back depending on how well he plays this season. And I think he'll have a bounce back season as well. But I think for the time being, Chris Boucher is here to stay unless they get some sort of draft capital and they need to free up some room at the power forward position, which I think they definitely need to do. So Nick Nurse focused on guarding threes, yet we had one of the worst opponent three-point shootings from the corner of the league. Yeah, Jonas, the thing was that a lot of teams figured out what the Raptors were trying to do. You saw Marcus Smart, pretty much the entire Celtics team. Every time we played them, you had Chris Boucher, you had Pascal Siakam running, Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, literally every player running towards the three-point line. And I guess this is what Nick Nurse wanted. And what players would do just pump fake, let them, sidestep or pump fake, let them jump past that player and then go in for the 3-point shot. Or even better, what they would do is now that they know that Chris Boucher, Pascal, whoever has just jumped past them, they would now dribble and get attract a little bit more traction towards opposing Raptors defense would come and try to guard that player. Then they would just pass to another, and that would lead to an open three as well. So I think that was the reason why. Jakob Koloko, of course, won't shoot threes. Sakati might struggle to shoot 35% from the three. Maybe though, maybe Tad too, but everyone else on the team has the ability to shoot 35% or more from the 3-point line. Shooting isn't bad. Yeah, scrambles, I do think they need a little bit more shooting. Um, I'm not the biggest Chris Boucher fan because I don't know how he fits into this system. I like his energy. I like him as a player. And sometimes when you listen to his podcast, he's so truthful about how he speaks, and that's something you've got to admire about Chris Boucher. He's very straightforward. So I don't know about Chris Boucher though. I really hope he has a bounce back season. I think he should. He'll play a little bit more relaxed, knowing that he won't be benched after making one mistake like how Nick Nurse did. So I expect Chris Boucher to be back. I expect him to have a major bounce back season as well. And I think he'll do good with Dennis. Again, Dennis should be facilitating a lot more off the bench. So we'll see what happens. But I expect Chris to have a bounce back season. Um, yeah, that's true. Nameless, you're right. I don't know what it was about the Raptors. We were just not guarding threes at all. Nick couldn't guard threes. Yeah, couldn't guard. Somebody really screwed Cam Whitmore. Did leak the info about his interview being bad. Yeah, RS Bandy, which was really strange because wasn't the interview about Cam Whitmore pretty much just saying that he was very nervous, he was sweating a lot during interviews? Yet we heard the same thing again. I'm not comparing Cam Whitmore to this player, but isn't that the same thing that we heard about Kawhi Leonard? Was the reason that the Phoenix Suns passed on him was because he was sweating through his suit apparently? So regardless, I think that's silly. There's also some questions about his injuries as well, RS, and then also a lot about his work ethic. That was a major thing with a lot of potential teams that want to draft Cam Whitmore. Siakam improved in three areas of his game and declined in 3-point shooting, and people focus on that and want to treat him because that's why the 3-point shooting is the only issue for Pascal. He's literally got better scrambles. It's one of those, again, when you have a bad season, the blame goes everywhere. And I want to remind you guys that when OG Anunoby was out, do you recall during a point of the season where Precious Achiuwa was in the starting lineup? And what were fans saying? We don't need OG Anunoby. Treat him. We've got Precious playing defense just like him. So fans will always jump back and forth with what they're saying, what they're changing their narratives to be. So it's Siakam's fine. He's played great. He's obviously struggled in his 3-point shooting because I also feel like he's focused more on his ISO game as well. So it's anyone that's played basketball, it's not impossible, but it's really hard to become really good scorer in the paint, become a good mid-range shooter, and then become a great 3-point shooter as well. Because it's something, again, that's why some of the elite talents are where they are, because for them to improve in all three areas is very difficult. So I do think Pascal will become a better 3-point shooter, but I also expect him to become a good mid-range shooter as well. He did say he wants to work with DeMar in the offseason, so let's see what happens. Literally took down Siakam's 3-point percentage, was being relied on for game winners and missed shots from three, and that's what people say he isn't clutch, and that's where his game has declined. The thing is, guys, we all know with Siakam, he's not a closer. Like, we all know this, and very few players are actually good closers in the NBA. Like, a handful of guys, maybe 7 to 10 guys in the entire NBA are closers that can consistently do it on a daily basis or weekly basis or whatever. So I mean, people said the same thing about DeMar, and look what DeMar's doing now, right? So again, I don't think Siakam will ever be a number one option. I don't think Siakam is a great closer as well, which is what he's kind of being forced into a role he's not comfortable being in. But the Raptors don't have any other options. Like, who's supposed to be closing? So again, we'll see. People need any excuse to hate on players, guys. That's all I'll say. Um, Screw Van Vliet, he is backstabbed us. That I'm not gonna finish the last one. I'm a fun guy because it seems like you speak Punjabi and that's a swear word, so I'm not gonna say that. So it's okay, guys. Let's just move on for Fred. Let's talk about the roster we have now, how we can improve. Dennis said he was brought in to be a leader, not a starter. He's a great bench leader. He's not afraid to speak up to anyone not playing team ball, whether starter or bench. Says Dark Card. Yeah, that's a good point. I think Dennis is going to be good for the young players as well. Like when you look at Oklahoma City Thunder, Chris Paul was there, Dennis was there as well, and obviously they had a huge impact on not only the season that the Oklahoma City had, where they finished, I believe, eighth, or they made the play-in, I believe, but they also had a huge impact on some of the younger guys as well. Just want to chime in for a bit. I believe this year's going to be an addition by subtraction type of year, says Sher Khan. I feel the Raptors are relying too much on Fred shooting and out. At least others will shoot a bit more, says Sher. Yeah, that is a good point. And Sher Khan, you are right, guys. I'm not going to lie, guys. It would be amazing. And like I was just looking at the Eastern Conference yesterday and the teams, and like there are a lot of question marks about the 76ers. We don't know what's going to happen in there. Even if Harden stays, like is he going to play consistently? Is he going to fake, his fat suit, whatever he's doing, he's not going to play well. I think they're going to drop. I also see the Milwaukee Bucks dropping a little bit in terms of standings. I could see the Raptors finishing fifth or sixth, but I would not be surprised if they finish lower than that. That's all I'm going to say. So again, their offense is definitely going to struggle at times. Their 3-point shooting will struggle at times as well. Obviously, there's reason to be optimistic. Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Grady Dick as well, and some of the other younger guys we have as well. But realistically speaking, it's going to be fun to watch them, but they're not going to win as many games. So again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they win a little bit more. If we can get just one more 3-point shooter on this team, that'd be amazing. But let's see how the season goes. I will make a video closer to when we're starting the regular season, and I'll discuss, what the Raptors, where the Raptors may finish in the Eastern Conference, and just give you a prediction of my Eastern Conference standings. Gary is and should always be our closer in this group. He's been the most clutch from what I've seen. So Sean, and you are not right. Again, it's one of those things. Nick Nurse isn't here, so Darko has to really take the reins and say, Gary's closing, or give him the chance. I think Gary definitely has that clutch gene in him. I'm not saying he's going to hit everything, but he's got the fearlessness from Dame and CJ McCollum, right, from his Portland deal. So I would love for him to become our closer. That would be amazing. I want him taking the last shot in the game. Me too, man. Me too. What did you think of Fred lying about not being offered an extension by the Raptors during one of the post-game interviews? Why lie? I still think we'll miss his leadership and toughness, says RS Bandy. I I was really confused by that, man. Like it's like just be truthful and honest, because you're lying to the media, you're lying to the fans, which is fine. But the management is looking at this and they're like, what the hell is he talking about? Like, you don't think the management sees this? They're like, hey, we just offered him a contract. Now he's saying he didn't get a contract. Now he's saying he is. Like, doesn't look. It's not a good look, man. I don't know what to see out of Fred, guys. I'm trying not to say bad things about him because I defended him this season. I do think we'll miss his leadership in terms of there's a lot of controversy around the Raptors locker room. The younger guys not listening to some of their leader veterans on their work ethic. So again, we don't know how much truth there is to that. But one thing I will say is, if Fred was telling some of the younger guys their work ethic is bad, we'll see how some of the young guys on the Houston Rockets improve, right? So that's all I gotta say. So particularly Jalen Green, who's been working with Fred a lot. So again, maybe there were, some truths to that report. Maybe the young guys were slacking. Who knows? Siakam was put in that closer fire role, fire though, and that's where his shooting declined on those missed game winners in the clutch. If he was making those at a good clip, he would have made more with more confidence. Scrambles. I think this thing was with, if you guys recall the Tampa season, boy oh boy, do you remember Siakam just literally missing everything at the rim? It rolled out, it would roll twice at the rim and fall out, and it was just, I don't know. It was quite sad to see Siakam that way, and then it was Fred the following season taking a lot of potential game winners as well. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. That's always been the biggest question. Hey, do you really think Scotty has superstar potential? Robert, I got a question for you. Define superstar. Like, are we talking about, when we talk about superstar? Are we talking about like Kevin Durant, the LeBron James, the Jason Tatum's, the Giannis Antetokounmpo's, or are we talking about or like the Kawhi Leonard's you could throw in there? I know he's had injury issues as well. Or are we talking about more of like an all-star? Like I don't want to throw Paul George into this, but who's another example? Like I'm gonna look at. Hold on, give me a minute, Robert. I'm gonna go with top 20 players in the NBA. 20 players in the NBA, and I'll give you some comparisons. Like, you could throw Giannis, like James Harden. That's not a good comparison, but here's a good comparison. Like Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell. Those type of players are really good, but they're not top 5 or top 10 players. So I wouldn't necessarily call them superstar players. I would call them really good all-star players. So I again I see Scotty Barnes being there at a really good all-star level. I don't know if the superstar potential is there, man, because he's gonna have to work hard on his ISO game, and I don't think it's necessarily there yet. I'm not saying it can't be, but it's tough to see him as a superstar, Robert, if I'm being honest. And that's not a hate on Scotty Barnes. It's just so difficult to become a superstar. It's unusual. Nick couldn't guard the three ball with all those wiry wings. Weird. Yeah, nameless. I don't understand that either. Like the Raptors had actually, believe it or not, they obviously gave up a lot of 3-point shots, but their defense was by the end of the season, I believe, top 10, 12. So it wasn't as bad as a lot of people thought. I think Jakob did make good big difference as well. So what do you think about trading some power forward depth such as Thaddeus Young or Chris Boucher for a sharpshooter point guard option for either bench or starting five closing? Matthew, welcome to the live chat. I've actually was mentioning that as well. I've mentioned this entire offseason. You know, I think you should look to move Chris Boucher for some sort of guard depth that can shoot excellent 3-point shooting. But then the question is, if Dennis is coming off the bench, you know, you got Gary in the starting lineup, do you really want another point guard off the bench? You know, that's the question. And even shooting guard, you know, you could make the argument, do you want another shooting guard off the bench, knowing that Grady Dick may be the shooting guard off the bench? So that's the only thing. It's like this roster is so hard to break up. Like I know people keep saying like pick a direction, but the thing is like it's not easy, guys. Like who are you trading? Do you want to trade away? I don't know. Like I'm trying to think. Precious Achiuwa. Like you don't know his ceiling yet. You still need to see what you have him, and you're not going to trade Christian Koloko as well, right? So, and you're clearly obviously not trading Grady Dick or Gary Trent Jr. at the time being. So, it's so difficult to make these trades. Like, how do you justify trading these players not knowing what you have with them? So, it's definitely not easy, but we'll see. Um, and keeping Pascal. We need to keep Pascal. Matthew, the reason I've said this, I've had a lot of spaces in Twitter talked about, trading Pascal, and a lot of people, a lot of fans want to rebuild, which is fine. You know, we had a terrible season, and I'm always open to any idea as long as Messiah gets the right pieces for Pascal. But here's the thing. OG wants a bigger role. So does Scotty. But ask yourself this question. Do you think Scotty is ready to be a number one option? Do you think OG is ready to be a number one or two option consistently every night? Because now what we need to realize is once you get rid of Pascal Siakam, and even if you get good assets back, that's from aside from the point. Now defenses are focused on Scotty and OG. That's the thing. And while Gary might be there, and while he may attract a little bit of attention, the main attention and main defensive schemes will be, built around stopping Scotty and OG. So that's the big question. Are they ready for that role? I do believe you need to take baby steps to allow those guys to grow into a bigger role. Like Fred's gone, OG's going to have a bigger role. Scotty's going to have a bigger role already. So, God forbid if those two players in particular who I really like, if they don't grow into the offensive role that we expect them to, then it's going to be a failure. Like imagine you get rid of Pascal Siakam and neither Scotty or OG are number one options. They're just number two options. Then you're pretty much dealing with the same issue. Like, and the pieces you get back may not necessarily be number one option potential. So now it's like, okay, what do you do? It's like you're kind of stuck in a weird position again. So again, I don't know. Again, and with OG and Anunoby, with Scotty, I think he could be a number two option. I'm not saying OG can't be a number two option. I just think it's very risky to put those players here when you should slowly allow them to get a bigger step. Maybe allow OG and Anunoby from being the consistent fifth and fourth option to allow him to be the second option on most nights and maybe third option. Then see how he does. You see Scotty Barnes, allow him to be a number two or number one option with Pascal there, then see how he does. Slowly allow those players to grow into those roles. Um, Love your friend rant, by the way, even though I was bummed out when he walked. Yeah, RS Vandy, I would not pay him. Look, I wouldn't pay him more than 33 million. Even with these new contracts being thrown around, I think my mindset was resign Fred, and if you have to trade him later, because you can always trade players with multiple years left on their contract. I was a little bit surprised he left as well, but I also think a trade may be coming soon to move either one of Thad, Otto, Chris, or Malachi in order to squeeze prospect or even Jeff Dowson. What do you think some of the targets can be? Says Sherkan. That's really tough, man. I think I do want to see regarding you did mention Thad. Now I do want to see one thing. I was actually looking at Thaddeus Young stats and where he played over 30. I'm actually going to pull his stats up in just a moment here. But in terms of Thaddeus Young, I still believe he can have a lot of value around the NBA and still net you, a second round pick or something at the very least, So like in terms of his game logs, taking a look at his game logs, I know he pretty much just sat the second half of the season, but I don't think he's declined as much as people believe it to be. Like his minutes per game, when you look at his minutes per game, a lot of the minutes where he played 20 plus minutes a game, he was putting up one game, he had, 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. One game he had 12 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 18 points and 9 rebounds, 4 assists. And this wasn't that long ago, right? So this was in November. So again, I know he's aged. I'm not saying he's going to be someone that can be a key contributor, but if you could build his value up a little bit, play him a little bit more. You could get some sort of because here's the thing. I want to mention CBA rules, right? A lot of teams don't want to get close to that luxury tax. You can treat him because he's an expiring contract and maybe take on a contract that's got one more season left and then acquire some sort of assets back, whether that's a player, whether that's, a second round pick or two for the future. I think that's what they could do with Thaddeus Young. With Chris Boucher, I don't think they'll trade Malachi Flynn. The reason I think that is because he's going to have a bounce back season. You still want to at least, even if you don't like Malachi, which is fine, you still want to build his value up a little bit at the very least, build it up and then treat him at the trade deadline like how you did with Terrence Davis. I think Malachi is going to have a bounce back season. For the record, Otto, I think you need to keep him. It's not much of a market for him. Chris Boucher, Hmm, this is tough. Like, I'm trying to go through a list of teams, guys. Maybe you could tell me, like, a list of. I'm going to go through NBA standings and look at teams that could use a Chris Boucher. Let's have a look here. Let's go Eastern Conference first. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers, maybe. I want to look at their roster as well, but I know they're kind of pressed up against close to the luxury because of some of the signings they have made. Yeah, I don't know. They've got Imani Bates. They also got Mamadi Daikite. I am sorry for mispronouncing the name, but I'm not familiar with that name. But these are both 6'10", 6'9" guys. Damian Jones is a center who's 28 years old, 6'11". Yeah, definitely not Cleveland. Like, I'm trying to think of teams, and I really can't. Like, maybe the Miami Heat. I'm trying to think. Maybe they can use that floor spacing besides Bam, but what are you going to acquire from the Miami Heat? They literally lost all of their role players. People say people are dissing our front office, and you look at some of their roster moves. They lost that role player to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, who are you acquiring? Like, they've got Caleb Martin, who they didn't want to apparently give up for. Who they didn't want to give up for Damian Lillard, which is funny. Like, they don't really have Cody Zeller, Kevin Love, Kyle Lowry. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I don't know who would. I'll drop a video on that maybe later during the next few weeks. Maybe a potential Chris Boucher trade. But let's see. Robert says superstar, yes, top 10, 15 caliber, better than Paul George. Robert, I don't know. I think Paul George is such an exceptional player, but he's not a true number one option. So again, I don't know if I'd compare him to Paul George. If he could reach that, I would consider that an absolute win for Scotty Barnes. And then, sorry guys, I'm just kind of losing track of the comments here, just trying to catch up. As Scrabble says, because they didn't respect his three-point shooting, and that was his first season when he was shooting a better percentage from three and respect his shot and had less field attempts per game. I've seen things for 2 years, and once Steven Adams brought into the squad, maybe he'll be open to this with all the drama in Memphis this past year. I think he can move the needle for us, Sean. I got to ask you one thing, Sean. Which way do you think Steven Adams can move the needle for the Toronto Raptors? Because he's pretty much, in terms of like physicality, no doubt he's one of the stronger players around the NBA. But in terms of rebounding, like Jakob is giving you essentially the same rebounds. Okay, maybe a few less. So Steven Adams averaged 11.5 rebounds last season, and the previous season 10 rebounds. So yes, maybe a little bit more than Jakob Poeltl, but his scoring was down at 6.9 points, 8.6 points. His assists are really good. He's a great passer as well. Three-point shot, he doesn't shoot. Free throw shooter, again, doesn't shoot. Free throw, my goodness, 36% from the free throw line on 3 attempts per game. So I don't know, Sean, I'm curious as to, and again, I'm not making fun of you. I hope you don't think this way, but I'm very curious to hear why you think Steven Adams would move the needle or why you think he's an upgrade over Jakob. I agree with your assessment of Scotty and superstar status. I think he'll be a perennial all-star at best. Yeah, I agree, Robert. Scramble says that's why all 3 levels of scoring excellence is where superstars have talent. Absolutely agree. Dark Heart says I could see Scotty and OG coming off the floor early, back on with Dick, Koloko, and Dennis staying on to close and start the second quarter. Yeah, I could see that as well. I know, look, again, I know I'm plugging my biases for Malachi Flynn here. I actually think he could be very, and I know I'm going to be contradicting myself here, because I said, if you trade Chris Boucher, do you want another point guard? But I think, again, depending on how Darko uses his front court, I think you could have Malachi Flynn playing with Dennis Schroeder. I do want to pronounce his last name correctly because that's how it's pronounced. It's not Dennis Schroeder, it's Dennis Schroeder, and I mispronounce it sometimes. But yeah, I think you could see Dennis and Malachi Flynn playing off the bench together because Flynn has the 3-point shot as well. So RS says, if we had Jakob from the beginning of last season, we definitely had made the playoffs. We were good after he came to us. I so badly wanted us to re-sign Jakob, thinking Fred is definitely gonna re-sign. Yeah, it would have been really bizarre and interesting to see what the Raptors would have done with this roster if Fred had come back. Because you think like we have less money to pay guys like Pascal, OG, Gary, and Scotty's extension next offseason. Imagine having Fred VanVleet's 30, 35 million, coming into our roster. So yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that Jakob's back, and I agree. I think Jakob on this roster from the very beginning of the season. I said it after the Philadelphia 76ers a series as well. I went on a vent. I was venting, and I usually don't do that. And I said, the Raptors desperately need a center. You can't run a 6'9" lineup and have no centers on in there. So I don't strictly think we need a PG option. We have a lot of actual play creation. What we need for this roster is truly a rotational level 3-point shooter that fits. Yeah, Matthew, I gotta agree with you. We definitely need more 3-point shooting. If again, I'm not saying this season, if Christian Koloko can develop a shot where he's shooting 34%, maybe not next season, but the following season, 34% on, let's say, 3 attempts, 4 attempts per game. And I know he's capable of that because he's displayed that in his pre-draft workouts as well. So that would be amazing. That would change everything for the Raptors because then all of a sudden it gives you two different types of centers in Jakob and Christian Koloko. One who's a little bit obviously more experienced, better rebounder, better defender. And then you got Christian Koloko who gives you similar things in rim protection and also stretches the floor. That would be massive. So um, partly because Fred once revealed that no team called during his last free agency. Rockets offered stupidly high money and more than Luca. Good for him. Yeah, I don't think anyone saw the Rockets offering that much money to Fred. So it's exponentially the effect that above league average shooters shooting from three affects scoring creators option on all levels, drives, and mid range all get easier. I agree. So Miami, Atlanta, Charlotte, Philly in the East would all love Boucher. That is a good point. Actually, I never mentioned Philly. That could be an interesting, but apparently Paul Reed is supposed to be the next Pascal Siakam, according to, or at least Nick Nurse has said he's going to try and use Paul Reed and get him to expand his game and become something like Pascal Siakam. I need to check Paul Reed's 3-point shot because I think they're focused on Paul Reed, who's a power forward as well. He's also a lot younger at only 24 years old. So his 3-point shot, not good. He's not even attempted 0.3 attempts per game, and 0.167 is his shooting percentage last season. So they could definitely use him. I don't know how they would go about with Paul Reed, but I wonder what you could get for Charlotte Hornets. That would be an interesting team. Even the Atlanta Hawks. Well, with the Atlanta Hawks, I do, Matthew, want to quickly say that with the Atlanta Hawks, the thing is, they do have someone by the name of Jalen Johnson, who I think they'll try and use at the power forward position. I don't know if they're going to use him. He's one of those Ben Simmons types of players. They can use him at multiple positions. He doesn't shoot the three, though. That's the big issue. So maybe they do trade for him. Let's see. PG freshman comes off the bench, earning the sixth man of the year, freshman of the year, and then drafted fourth overall to the NBA. You don't think he's a PG, but if you don't get drafted, or I never said that. I'm assuming you're talking about Scotty Barnes, right? Fourth overall to the NBA. I'm not saying that he's not a 3-point or point guard. I just don't think it's something that he could do full time because then it becomes that issue with Scotty. It's like, okay, do you expect him to facilitate? Do you expect him to be aggressive? Because it's hard to do both, right, as a point guard. And also, I think people need to realize that being a point guard full time is going to take a toll on you as well. So it's harder, in my opinion, of taller point guards. It's doable with guys like maybe Luka Doncic, who's I believe 6'7", but it's harder to do when you're taller because you'll naturally have a longer bounce. And I said this on Twitter, it's just going to be easier for some of the quicker, shorter point guards to just come in there and steal the ball. So in the West, exactly what Phoenix is missing. Actually, that's a good point. Either LA team, Sacramento, Houston, if they want another vet, Spurs would all be fits for Chris Boucher. With Spurs, the only thing is, do they want another tall guy who's not able to? He's very skinny and he can't play the center position. So that's the only question. How about Lopez Twins on the Bucks? Talks about physical centers to go against. Yeah. The thing with Brook Lopez is even Jakob can't hold his own against Brook Lopez. Like Jakob is strong, but Brook Lopez is like a traditional like 90s big that's just so physical and strong. Why did we sign Temple? It's a 37-year-old undrafted guy, no disrespect, but we didn't. But didn't we sign Tad for the same reason 3 seasons ago? Otto partly because he's a vet. Otto was kind of brought in to be more of a 3-point shooter, also like a small forward, although we can play him at the power forward position as well. The thing is, guys, I'm not going to try to defend that signing. No, could we have signed more exciting players? Yes, we could have, RS. The thing is, do we ask yourself this question? When I thought about it, do we need more projects? Let's use that as an example. Let's say we drafted or we signed a very young player from the G League, for example, an unknown guy who has potential. We've done that a lot in the past. And even if we had someone different, like we only had about three-ish million dollars to work with. So I don't know if that was a lot of money in terms of what we could have got. Garrett Temple is a good locker room guy. And I know people will say, why we have Thaddeus Young. It never hurts to have multiple guys, right? Like when you look at the championship team we had, it wasn't just one guy. It wasn't just, Marcus All. It was Serge Ibaka. It was Kyle Lowry. It was Danny Green. So there were four veteran guys, and I'm sure I'm missing a handful of other names as well. But those were the four guys that were leading some of the younger guys on that team and really talking to them. So I don't necessarily think it's bad having too many veterans. Again, you could argue with this team right now. It's what Thad Young. You got Garrett Temple. Otto, I don't necessarily see him being a locker room guy. You have maybe Dennis there, right? So again, Pascal is not a vocal guy. He's not really a locker room guy. So yeah. And then Scrapple says you'll pronounce his name right. And when he starts putting in his YouTube videos in English, man, he puts out all this content in German, not disrespecting English as well as you do till then say his name, however. Put his I'm assuming you're Scramble, sorry, I'm just trying to read your comment again. I'm assuming you're talking about Dennis, right? Pronounce his name right. So Dennis Schroeder, because I've seen him pronounce Dennis Schröder. Schröder. I know my accent isn't on point, that German accent, but what are the chances of Greedy being sent to 905 to an extended run to develop him further, and Darko trying out everyone in the rotation in order to decide who to keep and who to trade at the deadline? Well, I don't think Darko has a say, sure, Khan, as to who gets traded or not. I could see them giving Greedy Dick more minutes in the G League because he'll get more time. He'll get more touches as well. I don't know if he can get those with the Raptors. He'll probably be coming off the bench, so we'll see. And then maybe more so to expand, not Darko's game, but more to expand Greedy Dick's game. Maybe make him more than just a 3-point shooter, because that's what we did with OG Anunoby, where we had him as a 3-point shooter for several years when he should have been doing a little bit more. But again, that was just the role he was in, and he kind of stuck with that role for several years. So I think Greedy, you can definitely expand his more a lot more than 905. Did you see the mix-up of trades with land Lillard in Miami, but we land Hero? Your thoughts? Chandler Serge Barek. Thank you for being here. I do not. Maybe you could redirect me to what Twitter account or what account posted this on Instagram or Twitter. Hero's definitely a talented player. Well, you already have Gary on the team, and I don't think Tyler has the right attitude for Raptors culture. Shirkan, that is a good point. And again, you're right. I don't know how Gary and Tyler would work together unless you have Tyler at the point guard position, which I don't know. They're both kind of shot creators, shoot first, guards. So I hate what they are doing with Doughton. I understand why they didn't cut Wieskamp before the play-in last year to sign Doughton, but that's business, I guess. Poor Jeff. I hope he makes the team. Art Vandy, I feel for Jeff, man. I feel for Jeff. That's the unfortunate business of the NBA, though, because Jeff Doughton is what, 27 years old. He hasn't had a consistent role. He hasn't had a consistent role in the NBA. 26, sorry. He's not going to be 27 until May, but like when you look at his career, his first season was when he was 24. When you look at his, he went through a lot of different teams. He went through about 3 different teams in his first season, where he played 4 games, 1 game, 9 games, and then he played 25 games with the Raptors. Now, it is unfortunate with Jeff Doughton. It's just the way the NBA works. Would you rather invest in a 26, soon to be 27-year-old, or would you rather invest in a 21-year-old? That's just the way the NBA works. I hate it too. I don't like it. With Wieskamp, I think they were hoping for more, RS. They were hoping for more, and then we saw him during the summer league, and we all questioned why he wasn't playing until you saw his summer league play, and you understand that he's not a very good NBA player, right? So again, best wishes to Wieskamp. Here's hoping he establishes some sort of role in the NBA. Maybe he does get another second chance as well, but yeah, it just wasn't working. Siakam to Hornets for a small forward Hayward. Mark Williams, 2 first-round picks, unprotected. Your thoughts on this trade? I would not do that trade, Mohammed, for several reasons. I would not do that trade simply because you're not. Hold on. I'm gonna look up Mark Williams because I've heard that name, but I'm not too familiar with what he's able to do. So let's pull up his statistics here. So Mark Williams, 21-year-old rookie, 7'1", 241 pounds. He's gonna be 22 in December 16th. Let's see, in his first season, wow, actually, that's not bad. 9 points, 7 rebounds, a block a game, Doesn't shoot the 3-point ball. Free throw percentage was 69%. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I still wouldn't do that deal. I feel like you either need to get one more picks in there or you need to get at least one more blue chip prospect in there. Like you need to get something more. And just considering we already have centers in Christian Koloko and Jakob Pertl, I don't know. I don't know about that. Raptors did develop Boucher late in his career, so I definitely think Doughton can follow the same trajectory. I agree, Shirkan. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying how the NBA works, unfortunately, and it's changed so much from even 15 years ago. I don't know how long you guys have been watching basketball, but in the 2000s, early, mid, even late 2000s, we always saw these kind of guys like Jeff Doughton. They'd be backup guards on, lottery teams, and those kind of teams would always, have him as a backguard position. Then you'd see him traded to a playoff team, and then, you'd get some sort of production from him as a backup guard. But just the way that even lottery teams are functioning these days, it's mostly just, invest in younger guys that could be potential, that have potential, that could be part of your future in the NBA. So it is unfortunate. It is what it is. It's been an hour or so into a live stream. I usually don't do live stream, guys. So live streams. I really do appreciate you guys being here. If you guys have a few more questions, we're gonna wrap it up, and then yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Raptors. I'm gonna maybe try and get out another video or two before this week's over. So. Chandler is writing. I was happy to tell my dad that our new head coach shares our Serbian roots, but if we start to choke and help us see the impending memes, the future is looking pretty darko for Toronto. Says Chandler, you got to claim that one before someone else on Twitter, man. Dark, looking pretty darko for Toronto. That's a good one. Hey, I'm very happy for you guys. It's anytime you get someone from your roots representing you in the NBA and your favorite team, it's a cool thing to see. Do you want to get players on your channel for interviews? Maybe the bench guys would be more willing to talk. I did see your collab videos, but were players' interviews ever a part of your vision? RS Vandy, I'll be honest with you. Players, even the most famous, like Raptors Digest, and that's not a shot at Raptors Digest. Players do not do collabs on YouTube's unless you pay them an insane amount of money or you're very well known around the YouTube community. Like, there's a reason why even some of the top YouTube channels, like you look at who's the guy that's a Detroit Pistons fan? I'm trying to gonna open up my YouTube here and I'm trying. Anyways, guys, like even top guys, it's hard, man. It's hard. It's hard to get any sort of even former players, coming on here. So it's gonna be hard to do that. But it would be awesome if I could. Maybe I'll reach out and maybe former Raptors players. We'll see if I can pay them a little bit. Maybe I don't know if they'll come on voluntarily. They'll probably are a nice incentive to come on here. So we'll see. I know for a fact, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting his name because I'm just blanking out at the moment. Gumpstown, actually, I don't know if you guys follow him. He actually had Jack Armstrong on his channel as well. So I don't know. Again, Jack Armstrong did mention something along the lines of, thanks for a donation. So I'm sure, he got money for coming on his channel, but maybe I'll see. I'll try to maybe DM, some former NBA players. I don't think they'll respond, but you never know. Let's see. Mohammed says Grady Dick is not just a good 3-point shooter. He has good IQ and is a good passer. Mark my words, Darko will make him a star. The thing is, Mohammed, I feel like we throw the word star a little bit too loosely. And I was actually, I'm saying this for one of my favorite players in Pascal Siakam, was that when we won the championship, fans were comparing him, Raptors fans were comparing him to Jason Tatum. And I thought those were silly comparisons. They said he's a superstar, he's a star in the making. As like, okay, Pascal Siakam is great, but he's never going to be a star. And that's just the reality. Like certain guys, for a player to become a star, you have to show it in the first few years. And unfortunately, I just think with Pascal, it's just like he just hasn't started basketball young enough. But also, I just don't think he's ever going to be a star player no matter what, even though he's one of the hardest working players, according to Rico. So again, we'll see. Mohammed, I do agree with you that he has a high IQ and he's going to be more than just a 3-point shooter. He is a good passer as well. And I'm not saying he's going to be a great defender, but he could definitely be a lot better defender than what a lot of people may give him credit for. Have we talked about why we haven't heard about Raptors offering Siakam an extension? Yes, sure, Khan. My guess is that, maybe Siakam wants the Supermax. Maybe Siakam wants to wait till the next offseason, and I don't blame him. Like when you look at some of the deals that are being passed around, even $45 million, it's crazy to think because talking about this during the season, before the season, people are saying $45 million is a lot. Now guys like Desmond Bain and Fred are getting, 45, $43 million, 42. Not to say that, those two players can be compared to Siakam or to each other, but yeah, I don't know. Phil Gapp saying, thank you for doing this live. I appreciate you guys for being here. And thank you, Phil. Yeah, I don't think Pascal maybe wants an extension yet. Maybe he wants to wait till the next offseason, which is why the Raptors may have been trying to trade him. Start with Jack Armstrong. He can probably introduce you to the rest of the team so you can work something out for a player's interview. Sean, I would love to. I think the only thing is, like, I don't know if you guys watch Raptors Republic. I'm forgetting his name a lot, guys. I have the memory of a 70-year-old. I swear I'm losing my memory. Who is the guy on Raptors Republic who's a really good speaker? I actually DM'd one of the guys on the Raptors Republic, and he didn't get back to me. No hard feelings though. But again, you got to realize that there's so many people, and they're doing their own thing. Samson. So Samson actually is someone that he's got amazing basketball IQ. I watched him on Raptors Republic, but he talked about talking to some of the guys at the summer league. So certain NBA players. So I would love Sean to maybe have Jack introduce me. But you have to have connections. Like, you have to be a media personnel guy for any sort of Raptors players to be coming on your channel. You're Messiah in Portland says to you, okay, Lillard's willing to come to Toronto. Who and what are you willing to give? What would your answer be? Chandler, assuming obviously, Pascal said he's not going to commit to a team. He's not going there, Chandler. It's hard. I'm keeping Scotty Barnes off that list, even though it's tempting to include him, because I think, again, I know fans are going to roast me for this, but if you include Scotty, I think you can include less picks and less guys as well. So imagine a lineup of Jakob, Pascal, OG, Gary, and Damian Lillard. Like, you got an abundance of 3-point shooting. The only reason, again, I'm obviously wouldn't trade Scotty, but if you do include that, you have a lot of 3-point shooting. If you don't include that, then you have to trade OG Anunoby. Gary Trent, we need to remember, kind of dissed Portland when he left there. He dissed the management a little bit, so I don't see him going back. So OG going back, then you have to throw in Christian Koloko or Precious Achiuwa or Grady Dick, or two of them, and then probably throw in multiple picks as well, and including role players like Chris Boucher and Thaddeus Young for salary purposes. So again, it's hard to see. I would probably do something along with OG, Thaddeus Young, Chris Boucher. I would probably try to keep Precious just because. Actually, no, I would throw Precious in there. I think Christian Koloko is very valuable, and he could be something really special in the NBA. So I really like Precious as well, but I definitely keep Grady Dick over Precious. I think with the skill set we need. So probably something along with Precious, OG, Thad, Chris Boucher, and a couple of first-round picks. Maybe, top 10, top 15 protection. So again, it's not easy. It's not easy because we don't want to give up a lot, right? But I mean, every team wants a lot for their players they're trading. So even us, like when we want to trade Pascal Siakam, and he's an expiring contract, right? We want Kobe Buffkin. We want so many things from the Atlanta Hawks, yet he's only got 1 year left. So Mohammed says Boston will regret giving Brown that contract, big contract, mark my words. Mohammed, the only thing I feel like is a lot of players will be making that contract in like 2 years' time, like where it's like 55 million will be the norm, 60 million will be the norm for superstar players. So I think it won't be as hard to move him if they do need to move him, but that is a lot. Sherman Hamilton too. I saw him at the grocery store once. Seems like a nice guy. Yeah, Sherman Hamilton, a lot of those guys, I don't, they're super nice guys. Like, even when you listen to them talking, they're super professional, super nice, and super courteous as well. Leo Rottens, John Z2, Keel. Oh man, Savannah's my crush, y'all. Savannah's, I hope my girl's not watching this, but Savannah's my crush. I'd absolutely love to have her on here, man. She's something, man. She's something. Anyways, guys, we should change the topic before it gets all weird. But yeah, Savannah's awesome. I'd love to have her on any of those on my channel. So anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. It's an hour and 13 minutes. I do appreciate you guys being here. Again, if you're here, if you want to subscribe, how long will you continue reading the luxury tax? It's tough. It's tough. I'll answer a few questions. How long will we? I think a lot of the moves will be made. RS, they did say that they're going to evaluate the season early into the season and see how it goes, right? So we'll see. If the Raptors go haywire and they're playing terrible, then Pascal's going to get traded. I don't think they're going to wait till the end of the season. So we'll see. What will Darko's defense be and look like? I think it'll be good defense. You'll see a lot more traditional defense, I think, with Darko. It'll be a lot more one-on-one, less, double teaming, triple teaming. So we'll see. Mohammed, that's what my prediction is for Darko's defense. Great discussion. Thanks, Warach. I do want to pronounce my name correctly. This is RS Bandy. RS, thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for all your questions. I do appreciate your love and support. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe as well. And that will be it. And I will be ending the live stream, guys. So thank you once again. Todd Stevens, thank you for doing this. Appreciate honest takes. Todd, I really appreciate you being here as well. Thank you guys once again. Sean says, so we'll be frustrated and free in a few years. No need for us to go for Dame. Chandler, thank you as well. I appreciate you guys for being here. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I will say one thing. I think the East is going to be wide open. Like Siakam's 29? And even if you do trade him, like the East is wide open. If you're going to trade Siakam, trade him for a superstar player, man. That's all I got to say. If you're going to trade for Siakam, go all in. Like trade him for a superstar player, 1-for-1. I think the Raptors, man, they have a glorious opportunity here. 76ers are falling apart. I don't know what they're going to do with the James Harden situation. Milwaukee Bucks are getting older. Giannis, as mentioned, could leave. Brook Lopez has got like another, year or two of production. Same with Drew Holiday. Chris Middleton keeps getting injured. So I don't know. I think they're wide open. Anyways, guys, thank you for being here. I'm going to end it here. I appreciate all of your questions. I appreciate all the love. So thank you, guys.